About Japan Conference. I am Shintaro Sawayama, Doctor of Theoretical Physics. This audio file was created by Panopreter Basic. You can download it at www.panopreter.com. I am going to explain briefly what Japan Conference is. Briefly, they are the forces trying to justify the 15-year war. The 15-year war is an academic term that refers to about 15 years of war from Manchurian incident until the end of the war. Since the Manchurian incident until the defeat war is a connected war, it has come to say so. There are persons that call Greater East Asia War about that war, but in the first place the word Great East Asia War has a meaning to justify the 15-year war. The 15-year war refers to the days from the Manchurian incident to the China-Japanese full war, and from the Pacific War to the defeat. In order to speak clearly, I will divide the members of the Japanese conference into three or so. One is activists with thought, the other one is a pre-war establishment, the other is a politician. There are also some people who are on TV and so on. Please think that the main is those of establishment until the war. Since the pre-war Japan was a status system, people with high standing often became leaders of war. Many of them were war criminals in Tokyo trials. And it is good to think that what the Japanese conference wanted to do was originally the honor recovery movement of war criminals. The people of establishment until this war are currently doing work such as the priestess of the shrine. The shrine head office is in the background of the Japanese conference. Their argument is the denial of the Potsdam Declaration, the denial of Tokyo trials, the denial of the San Francisco Peace Treaty. What they want to do most is worsening of the constitution. The Japanese constitution was made by the Japanese post-war cabinet at the time, but they are misunderstanding that they were pressed by GHQ and seem to want to make a voluntary constitution. For the desire to make a voluntary constitution, they are trying to eliminate three basic human rights, national sovereignty and pacifism, but if they do that, we will only be occupied by the United Nations. This audio file was created by Panopreter Basic. You can download it at www.panopreter.com. The Japanese conference adopted the Abe administration and tried to make war on the constitution, but immediately after the upper house election, the emperor issued a statement that took some time to stop the worsening of their constitution. Because it is the enemy of the emperor, in short, they are Chutki. However, the Abe administration does not seem to give up the constitutional warfare altogether yet. In order to justify the 15-year war, they are going to do history fights and other things, so that they are not being opposed from the world at all. No matter how much abuse of power, Japan Conference cannot change historical facts. In San Francisco City, New Jersey province, unanimously the establishment of a comfort woman's statues were decided, and in the Philippines the comfort women's statue was decided as a country. To justify the war, they say comfort women were not compulsory, that the Nanjing massacre was an imitation, and many others. Of course, the world is not so sweet that such an international argument is acceptable, and what the United Nations is saying is the Allied powers, if Japan tries to rearmament or try to regain the Empire of Japan. In the meantime, Japan will be occupied again by the United Nations, and for that purpose America has Yokota Base and Atsugi Base in Japan. These U.S. military bases are in order to militarily control them in Japan when militarists are about to resurrect. I mentioned earlier that there are activists, politicians, people of establishment until the war in the Japanese conference, but those who truly believe the national Shinto among them are about activists. Many of the politicians who are in the Japanese conference are those who are in for votes. People who are seriously considering changing the constitution within the LDP seem to be a minority. The people of establishment until the war are against the emperor. When the emperor told the emperor as a symbol, they said that the emperor abandoned the emperor's duties. For them the emperor was only a tool to rule over Japan. This audio file was created by Panopreter Basic. You can download it at www.panopreter.com. I thought that for a long time they believed in the national Shinto, but when I saw the emperor overturning the emperor's withdrawal, I realized that they think emperor only is considered the tool of governance. It looks like the enemy of emperor. I think that serious activists were betrayed. However, what they want to do is quite different. I actually know that it is an education when it was a special era of the 4.5 years of the Pacific War, even under wartime. Actually they want to do special education as had been done at Moritomo Gakuen. It seems that they cannot be deceived adults in the national Shinto, and they think scholars are disturbing national Shinto. So, the Abe administration is doing something like repressing literary scholars. They say like restructuring a large number of professors in the literature from national universities. By the way, there was a case called Totoka Yacht School before Moritomo Gakuen, and I knew what they wanted to do for quite a while. If they try to realize their desire, we will be reoccupied by the United Nations in the blink of an eye, but the reason why they are trying to do it is, they are stupid. They do not know the history of the 15-year war and do not even know the history of the post-war are in the Japanese conference. If there is general common sense, it does not become such a fool right wing. After that, they make scholars an enemy, but one of them that moves them has a complex to knowledge. I have also received many insults and slander as one of the scholars. As in the case of the Japan conference, forces like to justify the 15-year war were few in the past, but I think that it was increased by the grassroots movement. A Japanese conference was established in 1997, Yoshinori Kobayashi's Theory of War published in 1998, and 2 channels can be made in 1999. They mainly worked on the net and extended their forces. Especially, by the thing called summary blog and summary site, they have spread the history of lies. This audio file was created by Panopreter Basic. You can download it at www.panopreter.com. Actually, the flow of the Japanese conference is with the Seiwa party of the LDP. At the beginning of the flow is from the time of Prime Minister Nakasone. Many of Japan's prime ministers after the war were CIA, it was up to Emperor Showa, but only Kakui Tanaka was different. I think that Ohara was also different. By this politics of Kakui Tanaka, Japan will take distance from America and Kakui will be dropped in the Lockheed case. There are good and bad places in Tanaka Kakui's politics. Politics lost politics, others enriched prefectures on the side of the Sea of Japan that had been called back Japan at the time there is. I think that the word Pacific Belt is famous, but before Kakui the industries were prevalent in the Pacific Ocean facing the industrial sector, the disparity was terrible with the Sea of Japan side. Also, Kakui Tanaka paved roads in Japan instead of politicians and corruption politics. Most of the roads that had not been paved were mostly roads in Japan. It seemed like only paved roads in Tokyo. And Kakui is also a man who drove politicians of establishment before the war, and he was coward Japanese politics like establishment. I think that Nakasone was the one that feel the sense of crisis. Nakasone laid a long-term administration instead of following the United States. And instead of doing politician politics, he attempted to gather religious votes. At that time the predecessor of the Japanese conference came to be attracted to the Seiwa party of the LDP. As I mentioned earlier, I divided the politics of Japan after the war with the people of establishment until the war, but in fact it was because Japan did not judge the war criminal properly. After the war, under the guidance of the United States, there is the fact that USA used war criminals for red hunting. I think that it was a problem to let them return to public office, especially among them. Those who returned from war criminals to public office became self-defense personnel, became police, became teachers. Prime Minister Miyazawa said that returning from the post officials made the country funny after World War II. This audio file was created by Panopreter Basic. You can download it at www.panopreter.com.